I wanted to talk a little bit about what it is to be an empath, because that word is thrown around a lot in the online space. And, let me first talk about how I first came across it. So, I was in the process of personal development, healing a lot of things, and I had grown up with um, alcoholics and was learning about the word codependency. And that ended up leading me to the word empath. And it was really fascinating when I learned about what it is to be an empath because it resonated so deeply for me. And basically, to be an empath is someone who feels really deeply, who is attuned to other people, which means they can feel what other people are feeling or know like their thoughts or kind of like see through the facade of what people are saying versus what they're really feeling underneath. Um, they are deeply caring people. They are often the people that other people come to kind of process and talk about heavier stuff with. And one of the things that I read, which was so hilarious, was you may find yourself standing in the store, a line in the store, and the random stranger starts pouring their heart out about the divorce they're going through or something in it. And I just cracked up at that because that has been my whole life. Like everywhere I go, people feel safe and comfortable with me and they just open up and pour their stuff on me or pour their stuff out to me, and I'm like, what the hell? I wondered like what was that about. And it's because empaths have this quality of um, presence, and like they really see you, they really see you. And this can actually be really irritating to some people who don't want to be seen, like really toxic people. Empaths and toxic personality toxic personalities do not mesh well. Although they're in the codependency literature and what I was researching, I was learning that there is this strange attraction between empaths and narcissists. And narcissist is a word that is also used in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Psychological Disorders, but that's a narcissistic personality disorder. Using the word narcissist by itself, it just implies a certain trait of um, someone who is very self-centered, who uses other people, who's manipulative and non-empathetic and abusive, basically. There's a lot more to it, but and empaths fall into the trap of attracting these people because they give them narcissistic supply. This means empaths are very loving and caring people, so they will exude good energy. They'll give people around them lots of time and attention, lots of airspace to talk things through. And a narcissist has like a never-ending need for that kind of supply, and so the empath gives it to them. And what a lot of empaths fall for is um, with narcissistic toxic people is the love bombing phase. And that means like the narcissist will be very, very nice and say all of the things that you want to hear and make you feel like they really know you and just give you a lot of lip service basically in the beginning to hook you in. And then slowly over time, they start to show more and more of their true selves, their toxic traits. And for some reason, like empaths have a blind spot to this. Even though they can see into the depths of people's souls, they sometimes will overlook the toxic patterns of narcissistic people because they're very good at putting up a front, especially if you grew up with really toxic dynamics and that was like your default, that was normal to you. Then you, like me, may grow up giving everyone the benefit of the doubt. Oh, they just, had a really bad childhood, or they're just having a really hard day, or blah 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 blah, and you just excuse overtly abusive behavior, things that are really really inappropriate because you are a loving, caring person, to the detriment of yourself in some degrees. And so I work mainly with really empathic people. I'm very empathic, and I see this pattern all the time where they have tumultuous relationship dynamics, or they have really toxic family members, and they're consistently struggling with separating themselves, disentangling, creating boundaries, especially if they grew up in households where, their deep feeling, emotional states, their special needs, like needing certain types of foods or not doing well in certain kinds of crowds or noises, like Empaths can also be really highly sensitive. They can have specific food allergies, chemical reactions. They can have all kinds of strange things that just make them seem like they're high needs because they have special needs because they are highly, highly sensitive. And if they grew up around people who made them feel bad for having those needs, um, they may learn how to just hide or suppress or just manage their needs by themselves and not really share it with other people. So, for instance, when I was growing up, I had a lot of weird things happening. I would get bloody noses, I would have chronic diarrhea, always whenever I was around certain family members. And I was really, really sensitive to energy. I was really sensitive to food specifically. And I still am pretty sensitive around food. Certain foods just do not work with me. And growing up, I was judged as being a picky eater. I was told I had to eat my whole plate or else I had to fall asleep at the table. I was like, my needs and my awareness of what my body likes and doesn't like was not honored. And so I was punished for it. And oftentimes, like, I had to go pee very frequently. I had a very tiny bladder, and that would drive my caregivers crazy because we'd be like on a road trip and like, I gotta pee again, and they would just be annoyed and frustrated and angry at me all the time. And so I internalized all of that as like, I'm a burden on other people, my needs are too much for other people, and things like that. And so when I grew up in other relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, I would often keep those things to myself because I was afraid that if I shared what I needed with other people, or if I went to certain events and stuff where it's like, I can't eat the food, or I can't, because I know I'm going to get sick, and, I don't want to be rude, or all of this. And then, be in situations like that and try to explain to people, oh, I can't eat this because it makes me sick. And they look at you like, whatever. Like, a lot of people have an intolerance for understanding highly sensitive people. And so a lot of empaths will actually just not even go out and do things because the judgment they get from others is more painful than just staying home and missing out on things. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that a lot of highly sensitive people, they have special needs, and it's not them trying to be difficult. It's not them trying to be special. It's not them, you know, I don't know, whatever other people judge them for being that way. It's that they're really self-aware and they're trying to live the best, healthiest version of their life possible and feel the best they can. And people's rolling their eyes or judging them or making them feel bad for having certain needs just is, it's painful. It's unnecessary. And yet people are really harsh and judgmental towards highly sensitive people. And so there's that layer of difficulty in their relationships. It's just feeling like they're misunderstood, that, they don't belong, they don't fit in because other people just don't get them. They don't understand them. And I hear that all the time with empaths. Is like, I feel like I don't belong in this world. I feel like I'm not like the rest of the humans around me. And it's true. Like, empaths are a small percentage of the population. They're deeply feeling people. They're highly aware of their body and what their body feels, highly aware of their needs. And, other people don't understand it. They don't get it. They don't understand how, things that you say about your body or about what you need. And they see it as over the top or as too much. And at the same time, you don't have to be an empath to have consideration for other people's needs. In fact, a healthy person is going to care about whether something you eat is going to make you sick or not. And be like, of course, yeah, don't eat that. Like, what else can I get you to accommodate you? They're going to want to meet your needs because they care about you. But that's kind of like starting to parse out. This is what I was doing in the beginning of learning that I was an empath, starting to parse out healthy dynamics in relationships versus unhealthy dynamics in relationships. Because I grew up with really unhealthy dynamics that I thought was normal. It was like the default. This is the way people love. This is the way people get their needs met. This is the way people get what they want. Blah, 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 blah. We learn that from early childhood experiences. And yet I learned very, very dysfunctional things. And honestly, it was the grace and blessings that I had to be connected with many, many other families in my neighborhood and friends, that I was exposed to many other households where I saw, different dynamics and realized that my household had very toxic dynamics at an early age. So it wasn't all that I was raised in. But children who are isolated in that kind of environment and have no other exposure to other families and other dynamics really don't know the difference. And so empaths will ultimately take on some of these really maladaptive and dysfunctional ways of getting their needs met, of showing love, of communicating their boundaries. And it can be really, really hard and really necessary to take some time to heal, to reveal, and to release some of these things and reset yourself to a more healthy expression, self-expression. And empaths tend to really thrive when they're around other empaths because they finally have somebody like themselves who can hold space deeply for them, who can really see them, who can really hear them, who's not going to judge them for their special needs, who's actually going to completely get it. And for the first time, they feel understood. They feel seen. They feel heard. Like they're not being judged by everything that they're experiencing. And it's really in those safe, sacred spaces with other empaths that they can learn to thrive, and they can start to realize that, like, no, I have a right to ask for what I need if this is what makes me the healthiest version of myself, and start to learn how to communicate their needs, their boundaries, express themselves, um, and really own it without having to be so easily impacted by other people's judgments. Because to an empath, other people's judgments can feel like arrows in the back. It can feel very, very painful. And, um, you know, it's unnecessary to judge what other people do with their lives, the way they live. It's like, it's really no one else's business. So you do what you do to take care of yourself. You do the best you can to make sure that you're flourishing in the best way that you can. And that's really all you can do. Everyone else's like judgments or evaluations or opinions of it don't even matter. So just drop them. Um, So empaths are truly gifted because they're able to really hold space for other people who are going through a hard time, that have special needs, that um, are having painful relationship dynamics and stuff, because empaths get it. They understand the other people because they've been there and they've done that. Or even if they're with someone that is having an experience that they haven't had themselves, an empath is able to have a deep level of compassion and understanding through attunement, through really attuning to the other person, and asking questions and really getting to the bottom and being like, okay, I deeply want to understand you at a deep level. That is a big motivation of empaths. And it's really, really beautiful because they cultivate really deep, meaningful relationships with people if they're the right kind of people. If they're cultivating relationships with toxic people, and the toxic people are like being inconsistent, incongruent, and like displaying anger or rage or whatever toxic things at the empath is going to go home and like self-reflect and be like, what did I do wrong? And like make it all about themselves if they haven't done the work to recognize toxic versus not toxic patterns and behavior. Because they're so self-reflective and self-responsible that they'll make it, about something that's wrong with them. And while that's beautiful to always be self-reflective when someone gives you criticism or some sort of judgment or feedback, to be like, is this really me? Do I really do this? And really take a cold hard look at yourself. But at the same time, toxic people are going to just splurge onto you all of the nasty stuff that's within them and project onto you. So you need to know when something's a projection versus when something is a true reflection of you. And empaths are really, really good at giving a true reflection of other people. And that's the blessing that any of you get that have a friend with an empath, is because they can really see you for who you are. They're not like projecting onto you or seeing things that are really about them and making just this relationship really sticky. And so having empaths get together and having clear reflections of one another is really, really helpful, because empaths can easily get lost in the world with who they are by swirling in the judgments of others, by trying to figure out who they are based on the reflections they've gotten from everyone around them. And if they have a bunch of maladapted, unhealthy, unadjusted people surrounding them who are reflecting to them that they're too much, or that they're too emotional, or that they're too loud, or that they ask for too many things, or whatever, they're going to take on that identity And so it's so important for empaths to cultivate a strong center pillar of selfhood, of really getting clear about who they are. And empaths are relational, so they do best when they have a guide or a therapist or a teacher or somebody, a counselor who they can be in relationship with, who can really reflect back to them who they really are at their core. And it'll resonate at such a deep level in their body that they'll get the download, okay, this is who I am. That really, people saying that I'm too much or I'm too emotional, blah, blah, blah. They just have an intolerance for holding space for emotions. They have an intolerance for meeting other people's needs or considering other people's needs. They are not able to put other people at an equal standing with them, with what kind of space they take, the kind of needs and asks and boundaries that they have created. They're unequal relationships. And you start to really like take the rose glasses off and see reality for what it is, and like, holy crap, these non-reciprocal relationships with these people who are really judgmental and make me feel really bad for the things that I need, that I don't have a choice over, this is what my body needs, um, it's actually very, very toxic. And it can do an unraveling and undoing of yourself, especially if you're going through hardship. And so surrounding yourself with the right kind of people who can really see you, who can really reflect back to you who you are, is going to be so healing. And, I can't emphasize that enough, because once you have a certain period of time with a person who really attunes to you, who really sees you, who really reflects to you who you are, and you get really, really clear about who you are and who you are not through doing inner work, you'll go out in the world and you will not be as impacted by other people's judgments, by other people's, you know, side-handed comments or remarks or whatever, or rolling of eyes when you say that you can't have garlic or whatever the fuck it is. And really see the world for what it is and not take it so personally. And just realize, like, they have a complete lack of consideration and understanding for my experience. And it's hard because empaths seek so much to understand other people and put themselves in other people's shoes, that when other people are incapable of doing that, it feels bad. It feels wrong. It's like, why can't they do that for me? And you have to understand that, like, empaths are a small portion of the population. Most people don't do that. They don't step out of their experience into someone else's shoes to try to understand them. What could they be thinking? What could they be needing? How could what I'm saying be coming off to them? And really seeing both perspectives. But empaths just naturally do that all the time. And so it's kind of like crazy making when they're in a toxic relationship, because you're like, what did I do? Like, why are they seeing me this way? Blah, 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 blah. And you think that they've done the work to really get in your shoes and have compassion and consideration for you are, but they haven't. They are standing in their own shoes, looking out, and they're judging from that space. And they haven't made the attempt, because a sign that someone actually is putting effort in a reciprocal relationship with you is they'll ask questions and not make assumptions. If they have expectations of you, they'll communicate it